We'll now look at a brief background to the story of Acts. The book of Acts is the second volume of Luke's two-volume set, which is also addressed to Theophilus. And as was mentioned with the Gospel of Luke, it seems likely that Theophilus was a Roman official, since he is addressed as Most Excellent Theophilus. While the authors of Encountering the New Testament believe that Acts was written in the 60s, due to the fact that Acts ends with Paul in Rome, awaiting his trial before Caesar, the majority of New Testament scholars believe Acts was written after AD 70. Part of the reason for this is that Luke's Gospel had to have used Mark's Gospel. If Mark's Gospel was written in the mid-60s, then there needed some time to elapse between the writing of Mark's Gospel, Luke getting it, and then Luke composing his own for that. Is that possible that it could have been done within, just a couple of years? That certainly is a possibility, but it seems more likely that it would have happened after AD 70, which leaves the reason why Luke ends Acts without any reference of what happened to Paul, whether he was released and then went on to Spain and did some other things, or why we do not have record of him being executed by Nero, which church tradition claims happened. Why all that is left out in Acts is unclear. So some scholars will even date Acts as late as the early 2nd century. And so, there is not a clear definitive time frame for the book of Acts written. So the earliest will be the early 60s. The latest is going to be into the first half of the 2nd century. As in the case with the Gospel of Luke, we do not know where Luke was when he wrote Acts. Lots of possibilities exist, but again, no definitive answer about its location. In terms of some of the major theses of Acts, it appears to be that the gospel's successful spread throughout the Roman world, especially by the Apostle Paul, is the fulfillment of God's promises in the Old Testament, and is the continuation of Jesus' ministry and Jesus' mission and ministry. A couple of things about this statement. First of all, that we do see a success of the gospel spread in the Roman world. One of the things that is highlighted oftentimes in Acts is how God is with Christians and how they explode numerically, even in the face of opposition and hostility and false charges. Nevertheless, they continue to grow, and that is because God is with them. So there is success. The book of Acts is not the history of the early church. It is the history of one section of the early church. And the focus is primarily on how Christianity moved from this Jewish context, Jesus being a Jew, his early disciples being Jewish, their first activities taking place in Palestine, how it then came to be something that was embraced by Roman citizens, by Greeks and other Gentiles. And so it's explained by Luke that this is all a part of a greater plan. There's this continuity that moves through Israel's history, moves through Jesus' ministry, and is continuing on in the work of the Apostle Paul. So it legitimizes Paul's Christianity as the authoritative or the definitive expression of Christianity. Because by the time Acts is written, there are different types of Christian movements that are in existence. And so this book tries to state or define that true Christianity is that which has been operative through the Apostle Paul and what the Apostle Paul did. One subpoint of Acts is that while the Roman government has nothing to fear from Christians and their beliefs, in certain cities, Jewish authorities have felt threatened by Jesus' apostles and try to manipulate Roman authorities to imprison and even execute some of them. So there is hostility that the Christian movement is having, but the author of Acts sees that hostility is coming from envious or jealous Jewish authorities. And please note, it is again Jewish authorities, not Jews in general, but Jewish authorities that feel this threat and want to try and stop it and derail it. And Roman officials are not really that concerned. In fact, they will sometimes come to Paul's defense, or Roman authorities may get dragged into a debate that to them would probably look like an internal squabble between Jews. Another subpoint of Acts is that the continued growth of the church is a testimony to the fact that God is with his people and is guiding them by the means of the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit plays a very important role. Jesus empowers his apostles through the Holy Spirit to be his witnesses in the world. The Holy Spirit will lead different individuals to places to evangelize. He will prevent Paul from going into certain places. So God's presence with his people is seen in the activity of the Spirit. And that again reassures that this is the correct form or the correct expression of Christianity. And that just gives us a little bit of insight into the story or the idea in the book of Acts.